the courage to spare when enemies become brothers. War is loud. It smells of oil and smoke. It tastes like metal. It shatters glass and tears steel apart. It teaches young men to aim first and feel later. But sometimes, rarely, something extraordinary happens in the middle of that noise. Someone chooses not to pull the trigger. And in that choice, humanity survives. A salute in the sky. On December 20, 1943, Franz Stigler climbed into his Messerschmitt Bf 109 over Germany. The Bf 109 was small, fast, deadly, built to climb quickly and strike hard. Ahead of him limped a B-17 Flying Fortress. Normally, the B-17 was a giant, 4 engines, heavy armor, bristling with machine guns. It was designed to absorb punishment. But this one was no fortress. Its tail was shredded, metal hung like broken ribs. Blood had frozen along the fuselage in the bitter cold. One crew member was dead. Others were badly wounded. Inside that shattered aircraft was 21-year-old American pilot Charlie Brown and his crew on their first mission. The contrast was stark. A sleek predator behind a crippled giant. A hunter and something barely still alive. Stigler moved into firing position. One burst of cannon fire. That was all it would take. He needed one more victory for a major award. Orders demanded it. The war expected it. But when he flew close enough to see inside, he saw wounded men struggling to help each other. No guns firing back. No resistance left. They were defenseless. Years earlier, his commander had made something clear. Shooting a helpless man was murder, not combat. Stigler understood the weight of that truth. To fire now would not just end their lives. It would damage something inside him. What we now call moral injury. The wound that forms when a person betrays his own conscience. And there was another risk. In Nazi Germany, sparing an enemy aircraft could be considered treason. It could mean court-martial. Even execution. Stigler was not simply choosing mercy. He was choosing a path that could cost him everything. Mercy, in that frozen sky, was courage. So he did the unthinkable. He did not fire. Instead, he flew beside the wounded bomber. Close enough that German anti-aircraft gunners would hesitate. Close enough that from the ground the two planes might look like one. He escorted the crippled aircraft out toward the North Sea. Then, before turning back, he raised his hand in a silent salute. No words. Just two young men separated by a few feet of winter air and by an entire war. The handshake that healed. The bomber made it home. For 46 years, both men carried that moment in silence. Charlie Brown never forgot the German pilot who spared him. Decades later, he searched for him. He found him living quietly in Canada. When they met in a hotel lobby in Florida, there was no smoke. No shattered glass. No screaming engines. Only silence. Two elderly men walked toward each other. They stopped. They embraced. For many veterans, the war never truly ends. Survivors' guilt lingers. Questions echo. Memories replay in the dark. That handshake did something battle could not. It healed. Stigler learned the crew had survived. Brown learned mercy had not been weakness. It had been strength. They became close friends. They spoke often. They visited each other. One signed letters to the other, your brother. When they died in 2008, just months apart, it felt less like coincidence and more like a final closing of the circle. The chivalry of the clouds. Fighter pilots once imagined themselves as modern knights. Fragile machines. Personal duels. A code above the chaos below. In North Africa, German ace Hans Joachim Marseille shot down an RAF pilot named Richard Bassett. Bassett survived the crash. Later, Marseille dropped a message over Allied lines giving Bassett's location, so he could be rescued. It was a small act in a vast war. But it mattered. During World War I, the Red Baron sometimes ensured fallen opponents received proper burial. On one occasion, he sent a wreath to honor a downed enemy pilot. Above the mud and trenches, some pilots clung to an old idea. That courage could recognize courage, even across enemy lines. Mercy on the ground. This spark of humanity was not limited to the skies. During the American Civil War, at the Battle of Fredericksburg, wounded Union soldiers lay crying between battle lines. A Confederate soldier named Richard Kirkland could not bear the sound. Unarmed, he climbed over a stone wall and carried water to the wounded. Union rifles aimed at him, then lowered. For nearly an hour, a fragile truce held, while one soldier comforted men who had been trying to kill him only hours earlier. The battlefield still smelled of smoke, but it also held mercy. The duel in the dinner. During the War of 1812, American Captain Stephen Decatur once debated ship superiority with British Captain John Carden. They eventually met in battle. Decatur's ship won. When Carden came aboard to surrender, Decatur refused to take his sword. Instead of humiliation, there was respect. Instead of bitterness, there was dinner. Decatur knew that while the ships belonged to their nations, their honor belonged only to them. Why these stories matter? These moments did not stop wars, but they revealed something deeper. In every conflict, there is a third choice: fight, flee, or see the human being in front of you. Stigler saved 9 American lives, but he also saved himself. He refused to let hatred define him. Years later, when former enemies shook hands, they were not rewriting history. They were reclaiming their own humanity. The smoke fades. The engines fall silent, but mercy echoes. The ripple effect of mercy. Because Franz Stigler did not pull the trigger, the crew of that B-17 went home. They married. They built families. They had children and grandchildren. Today, there are hundreds of lives, sons, daughters, teachers, doctors, artists, who exist because one man chose restraint over reward. One decision in a frozen sky created generations. That is the true legacy of mercy. Enemies but not forever. History is filled with battles, but it is also filled with moments when someone chose conscience over command. Hatred is loud, mercy is quiet, but mercy lasts longer. Sometimes the bravest act is not firing the shot. It is lowering the gun and seeing a human being in the crosshairs. Enemies, yes, but not forever.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Bristling. Definition: covered with many sharp objects sticking out. Example: the soldier stood next to a tank bristling with guns. 2. It was designed to absorb punishment. Definition: it was built to take heavy damage without breaking. Example: the old truck was designed to absorb punishment on rough roads. 3. Shredded. Definition: torn into many small or thin pieces. Example: the paper was shredded into tiny strips. 4. Stark. Definition: very clear and strong, often in a harsh or shocking way. Example: the difference between the rich and the poor was stark. 5. Sleek. Definition: smooth, shiny, and well-shaped. Example: the athlete drove a sleek black car. 6. Predator. Definition: an animal that hunts and kills other animals for food. Example: the lion is a powerful predator in the wild. 7. Chivalry. Definition: polite and brave behavior, especially showing respect and kindness. Example: he showed chivalry by helping the elderly woman carry her bags. 8. Curate. Definition: to carefully choose and organize things. Example: she curated the photos for the school art show. 9. Crosshairs. Definition: the small crossed lines in a gun sight that help aim at a target. Example: the deer stood still in the hunter's crosshairs.
Comprehension questions. 1. Who were the 2 pilots involved in the famous encounter over Germany in 1943? Answer: the 2 pilots were Franz Stigler, a German fighter pilot, and Charlie Brown, an American B-17 bomber pilot. 2. Why was Charlie Brown's B-17 bomber an easy target? Answer: the bomber was badly damaged, many crew members were wounded, and it could barely stay in the air. 3. How did the Bf-109 compare to the damaged B-17? Answer: the Bf-109 was small, fast, and agile, while the damaged B-17 was large, slow, and defenseless. 4. What important decision did Franz Stigler have to make? Answer: he had to decide whether to shoot down the helpless bomber or spare it. 5. What personal risk did Stigler take by sparing the bomber? Answer: he risked being punished for treason, which could have led to court-martial or even execution. 6. What is moral injury, as explained in the article? Answer: Moral injury is the deep emotional pain a person feels after acting against their own conscience. 7. What did Stigler do instead of attacking the bomber? Answer: he escorted the damaged bomber safely out of German airspace. 8. How did Stigler and Brown finally reconnect after the war? Answer: Brown searched for Stigler many years later, found him in Canada, and they met in person in 1990. 9. Why was their meeting in Florida so important? Answer: their meeting helped both men heal from the past and gave them peace. 10. What does the phrase "the chivalry of the clouds" mean in the article? Answer: it refers to the idea that some fighter pilots followed a code of honor and respected brave enemies. 11. What did Hans-Joachim Marseille do to show respect to Richard Bassett? Answer: he dropped a message giving Bassett's location so he could be rescued. 12. Who was Richard Kirkland, and what did he do during the Civil War? Answer: Richard Kirkland was a Confederate soldier who carried water to wounded enemy soldiers during battle. 13. How did Stephen Decatur show respect to his defeated enemy? Answer: he refused to take his enemy's sword and treated him with dignity. 14. What is meant by the ripple effect of mercy? Answer: it means that one act of kindness can affect many lives for generations. 15. What is the main message of the article? Answer: the main message is that even in war, people can choose mercy, and enemies do not have to remain enemies forever.